Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Purpose Tune podcast. My name is Kong Chong. I am the host of the show. Again, the goal of this show is to create valuable content to broaden your knowledge, inspire you to act, and get you in the right mindset so you can apply it in your own life to drive impact, generate meaning, and achieve your purpose. Now, today's guest is Bill Imada. Bill is the chairman and chief connectivity officer of IW Group, which is a public relations and marketing agency specializing in the multicultural markets. Bill and his agency represents clients such as AARP, BMS, Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, Nexus, Northwestern Mutual, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Walmart, Walt Disney, Warner Bros., Wells Fargo, and many others. Bill serves as on the boards of the Association of National Advertisers, Education Foundation, the Coalition for Asian Pacifics in Entertainment, Institute for Public Relations, the LA Grant Foundation, and the National ACE. In 2024, Bill was named to the American Advertising Federation's Advertising Hall of Fame and was later named to the PR Hall of Fame by PR Week. Bill, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your presence and your time. Let's check in. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing really well, Con. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. I know
I'm doing well.
we've been in talks about scheduling something for I'd say probably a few months. So I'm very happy that I finally got you. And I know you're a busy man doing great things. And I particularly was drawn to your background because you're obviously successful in your field, and you're also very passionate about Asian American work and communities. And so I'd like to start with first, why did you get into entrepreneurship? And then what was it that kept you being an entrepreneur versus being a W-2 employee for, another agency?
Well, I think when I first started, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. Like, I'm not sure if people kind of plan that out. It just kind of happens. So I was in college and I said, I need to get a job and I need to get a job that, will pay the bills, but also kind of make my parents happy. And so I bounced around from kind of job to job, kind of looking for the things that I would be interested in. But I have to say, the first thing I wanted to do was get into advertising and marketing. And when I applied for a job, which I thought I aced, I didn't get it. So I was a little pissed. I went, well, if they don't want me, then I'm going to try something else. So I do like working with people. So HR. Now, who doesn't want to hire people and give people benefits and promote them? I thought that's a perfect job for me as a person who likes to make people happy. Did that for a few years, hated it. Then went to executive recruiting, made some good money, hated it. Uh, and I went into politics. Well, helped a couple of people get elected, but then realized that politics is a very difficult and divisive area. So ultimately, kind of found my way back into advertising, PR, marketing, and met somebody on an airplane, literally reading about them, and then looking across the aisle and saying, "Wait a minute, the person I'm reading about is sitting across the aisle from me." Struck up a conversation. Next thing you know, I was an entrepreneur. So that's how it all got started.
Did you had anyone that inspired you to become an entrepreneur? People that you looked up to, role models?
No, actually, at the time, frankly, not like today, where there are a lot of Asian American Pacific Islander entrepreneurs. There weren't that many. There was one out of Boston,
Mm.
and it's way, way before your time. It was Wang Computers, and I said, "What in the world? A person that started a computer company?" And there were a few people like that, but they weren't people that necessarily that I looked up to. At the time, I was looking up more to people who were attorneys, lawyers, accountants, and doctors and engineers, as opposed to people that were entrepreneurs. So, no, I didn't have any role models at the time or people I looked up to. That came a little later.
Mm. I and I know you've been in business for 30 plus years, so it's been some time. And it, I when I first met you, I read your bio and I'm like, it must have been tough for someone like yourself in your situation 30 years ago, didn't have a lot of Asian American role models in television, entertainment, media, or business. So how did you push through those difficult times? Did you ever experience any sort of I guess imposter syndrome that maybe perhaps this wasn't you weren't cut it for entrepreneurship, or because there's a lack of representation in entrepreneurship and in marketing and entertainment, all that, that maybe perhaps you don't belong in that space. Any of that happened or did you experience?
Imposter syndrome pops into my head all the time, even today.
Mm,
And before that term even became vogue and people were using it, I felt like an imposter everywhere I went.
mm,
I didn't go to one of the Tony Ivy League schools. I didn't feel like I was smart enough. I'd go into rooms and didn't feel like I had a voice.
mm,
And oftentimes I was the only Asian American in a room. And I was hopelessly introverted,
mm,
worried about everything I said. And even if I said something, I would run home and overthink and worry about making a fool of myself. So I was constantly worried about my image and worried about how people would um, think of me when I spoke. And even when I got into advertising marketing, there were very, very few role models. There was one woman named Lynn Choyueta,
mm.
who is well into her 90s now. She used to scare the crap out of me, to be perfectly honest. She was bold and brave, in your face. And I went, where in the world did this person come from? And why can't I be more like her? And there were a few others, but it was really hard to find anybody that looked like me in the advertising, marketing, PR, and entertainment space, with a few exceptions. So yes, imposter syndrome pops into my head everywhere I go, even today. And even though there are more Asian Americans in boardrooms, there are more Asian American executives, um, I still find myself alone in many of those rooms.
Do you find that as your superpower because you are the very few or the only person in the room of Asian descent, that perhaps you bring a unique perspective to the boardroom or to a meeting or to a group?
I do feel a little bit of responsibility more than a superpower. I feel like I have a responsibility to be present. I
Mm,
feel a responsibility to make a good impression. I feel a responsibility to provide a perspective of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. But I
mm,
realize that I can't represent everyone, and there are a lot of things I don't know.
right.
But I do still see myself as a person that needs to be in those rooms.
Mm,
And even if I don't always feel like I belong, I always want to make space so that other people will feel like they belong and ultimately um, realize how important it is for me to be there.
right. Yeah, that's important. And I feel like there's a lot of us and even listeners listening to this podcast where they feel like they don't belong in these spaces, whether they're, Asian American or African American, Native American, of a different background. And what would you say to folks who are much early in their career, feeling like they don't belong in rooms that are not for them? What
First of all,
advice
the
would you
first thing that I think people have to get out of their head is you belong wherever you feel you need to belong.
give?
And we need to make sure that we insert ourselves in those spaces because we belong in all those rooms where decisions are being made and where decisions, especially that impact us as Asian Americans, as humans, are. And that's in corporations, in organizations, in communities. We belong in those places. And so, first of all, we have to get that out of our head. And that's not easy to do. But once you do, you realize that it's not that hard to find places where you can create that belonging for others. And part of it is finding allies. And when I was first starting off, my allies were Black or Latino, Hispanics, women, the LGBT community, people that were, non-Hispanic white. I was always looking for allies to not only help me be present in those rooms, but also to get them to understand that I have a role to play and
Right.
my voice is important.
That's so important. And that's beautifully said. I agree with you. Even if earlier to your point, when you go into rooms and you feel like there's a sense of responsibility and that knowing that you don't have the right answers or all the answers to all things, related to Asian American, it's still important to show up in those rooms. Like you being in those rooms sends out a very clear and powerful statement that you belong there just because you're there. You may not say much, but the fact that your presence is there says a lot about the barriers that we need to break in order to get to those rooms.
And
And
I think it's difficult for a lot of Asian Americans. So I don't want to perpetuate too many stereotypes, but I do believe that um, we're not necessarily taught to be vocal. We're not necessarily taught to stand up, raise your hand, ask questions. And it was very hard for me to do that. But ultimately, I had a lot of people pushing me. So just one example, I was on the PBS national board, and I didn't get that position because I knew people, in PBS. There was an ally, and it was a Latina, a very powerful Hispanic woman named Helen Hernandez, who runs the Imagen Foundation, who was serving on that board. And her term was coming to an end. And she reached out and said, Bill, there are no Asian Americans on the national PBS board. And I said, so why is that important and why should I care about that? And she said, you should care. This is a media organization that is widely respected by a large number of people throughout the country and the world. And there are no Asian Americans, and your voice matters. And I said, but what do I need to do? And she said, I'm going to make sure that you get a role on the PBS board before I leave. And I'm going to give up my seat, but I'm not going to give it up until you say yes. Uh, and she could have given that role to anybody, another Latino, another person of color, a woman, someone else, but she chose me. And I took that responsibility very seriously. And so when I joined that board, I realized that we need to create those spaces. We need to make sure that everyone understands that not only do we have a point of view, we have something of value that we can bring to any board or organization. And so I learned a lot from having somebody do that for me.
That's so incredible. And what an honor to be able to serve on a national board like that and be surrounded by very intellectual, high performing individuals and being recognized that there's a unique perspective that you could bring. And it's not just anyone, but you particularly, and them recognizing your talents and the value you contribute. I think that's such a beautiful thing. And we need more of Bills in the world, who can, kick down the door and raise their voice and represent Asian Americans in ways that maybe perhaps their peers hadn't thought of Asian American community before. And so I'm very passionate about, my contribution to the Asian American community as well. I wrote my senior thesis on the Asian minority myth, which is a concept around how we have all these stereotypes that are being placed upon us that we, are, the closest in terms of race, closest race to the 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 the, the white race, and that other racial minorities should should follow suit. And that creates a very uh, um, it can create some tension among racial groups because Asian Americans are being placed as this, role model that other groups should look up to. And there's just it does a lot of harm for all race. And so
Yeah,
it's important that
kind of. I have to agree with you on that. And I was really excited that you wrote something about the model minority myth. I wanted to interject here because a thought popped in my head. So this idea of being a model minority, there was a woman there, and she's still around. She was a Columbia scholar. She was the head of Asia Society in New York. Her name was Vishaka Desai, uh, a woman of South Asian heritage, and she once said, being considered a model minority makes us invisible because it hides some of the challenges that the Asian American communities face in corporate America, in the world, in communities, in society, in organizations, and so having that designation placed on us puts us at risk because nobody thinks we have any challenges or problems. We are clannish, we take care of ourselves. Um, we don't necessarily need the help of others because we just help ourselves. And that's very dangerous. But the other thing that you said I thought was really important is that I actually reached out to a couple of my colleagues in the African American and Latino communities when Asians were being targeted during the start of COVID, that we were the ones that brought COVID to the United States and the world, and people needed a scapegoat. And I actually reached out to a couple of my colleagues, some very high level colleagues from around the country. And I ran into one of these Black leaders at the airport, and I said, we need your help. The Asian American community is being attacked. We're being scapegoated yet again um, for something that we did not cause or create. And this gentleman said, Bill, absolutely, you have my support. The Black community supports you. And publicly, we will do our utmost to ensure that we speak side by side with Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders as you go through this challenge. But then he said, but privately, I just want you to know I don't really give a damn about Asian Americans because you don't give a damn about us.
mm,
And frankly, Asian Americans are the other white meat.
hmm,
You cry when somebody looks at you funny in a restaurant. You point fingers and say, we're being beat up, we're being hurt, we're being maligned, we're being typecast or stereotyped. That's been happening to our community for 4 centuries.
yeah.
And where were you? And where is your community when we need your help?
Mm,
And I took that very seriously that, the Asian American community, yes, we don't want to be seen as a model minority because that does make us invisible. But at the same time, we need to remember all the people that came ahead of us
mm,
that paved the way to support us as we went and continue to go through our struggles.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's a very powerful opinion that this person had, and there's some truth to that. I think what needs to happen is that, you know, we as a human race need to come together and stand up for others, no matter if they're within the Asian American population or African American population, because we're all one race at the end of the day, at the human race. And when there's injustices or discrimination or prejudice done upon one group, everyone needs to speak up because if not, then they might be the next to target. And so I think we as an Asian American community need to do a better job at some of these social issues that are facing African Americans and other racial groups as well. And so that being said, I'm not saying that there aren't organizations out there that are already taking the courage and the steps to do so. There are. What are some of those Asian American associations or organizations that you know that are being proactive in fighting injustices of all forms?
So there is a group called the Asian Americans Advancing Justice. They have different affiliates all around the country, including Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, Georgia. And they are being very proactive about supporting any community that faces any type of social or civil injustice.
Mm.
There's groups like the Japanese American Citizens League that fought uh, against the discrimination and the brutality against the Muslim communities during, certain during 9/11, during the outbreak of SARS. So there are communities that are doing their part, and those community groups continue to this day to fight for other communities that have experienced injustice in our country.
That's beautiful. I love that. And my heart just warms up when I see, you know, not just our community, but communities coming together, fighting for injustices of all forms. Because I don't know who said this, but injustice, you know, anywhere is injustice everywhere, right? And so that's very important. Let's shift gear a little bit, and talk a little bit about success. What's your definition of success, and how do you overcome challenging times?
Well, today success is just waking up in the morning every day. I get up every morning. I'm very excited about the day. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't look at every single day with a fresh set of eyes. But for success for me is when you're able to not only use the kind of the privilege and the advantages that you've been able to develop over the years, but being able to share them and to elevate other people. And so I think that that for me is important. So when I see younger people that I mentor, even older people that I mentor, find a path toward purpose, but find something they love doing. They're able to follow their passions and succeed at it. If I play even a small role in that and see that they've succeeded to find that passion in their life, that's success for me.
That's beautiful. And you mentioned a keyword purpose, and of course the show is really about purpose and meaning. What's your definition of purpose?
Purpose for me is being able to find something you're passionate about and find a way to get to make it a reality in your life. So for me, it's about making sure that I leave the world in a much better place than when I started in it. It's to make sure that people have an opportunity to find their own passion and purpose in life and giving them a little guidance so that they create their path. Another item of purpose for me is that to understand and recognize and help others recognize that every single problem and challenge that we face in life has a solution and often multiple solutions. So for me, that's why I find purpose, something that I'm passionate about, and there are multiple passions, and seeing them come to reality.
That's so beautiful. And of course making an impact in the world too, right? Through your work, which is of course very instrumental in living out your purpose. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's just beautiful to hear. Now, let's say imagine yourself giving a talk in front of, let's say, high school students that are, you know, struggling to find their purpose or might not have thought of what purpose means to them. What advice, resources, insights could you share with them to inspire them to tap into um, the full version of who they are and live out their truest calling?
Well, no, probably the first thing I would do is tell them to kind of shed all the things that they've learned and approach things with kind of really a different set of fresh eyes
Hmm.
and find the things that they're passionate about and pursue them. even if it's three, four, five different passions, it's okay to pursue them all, and make time to do that. So that would be one. I will also tell people to kind of rethink the way they frame things. So they're going to hear a lot of terms like think outside of the box. I always tell people switch that up a little. Think inside the box first. You shouldn't reinvent wheels. It's totally fine to reinvent a wheel. We reinvent them all the time. Um, let's level the playing field. It's okay if the playing field isn't level. That will challenge you to find a way to navigate that field. So I'm always encouraging people to think a little unconventionally and not be so worried about where they are in life, because eventually they're going to, test things. They'll test things to the left, doesn't work. They'll go to the right, that doesn't work. They'll fall on their face more than one time, but it's how you pick yourself up and learn from that experience that ultimately will help you find your purpose.
Yeah. And that's basically the definition of resilience, right? Is, after each fail, pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and try it again, right? In
Yep.
life, we're gonna face a lot of failures, situations where we're being challenged, and it's how we respond to those challenges and failure moments that can define our character and really help us grow. How do
Yeah.
you
And I love this quote, Thomas Jefferson, he once said, I didn't fail, I just found 10,000 things that don't work. So, so that's what I love about that quote, because you're gonna probably fall and trip and fail, uh, maybe once, twice, three times a week, and that's okay. But what did you learn from it? What did you take away from it, and what can you pass along to others so they don't fall as hard?
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's where, we talked about earlier, role model comes in, having mentorships, opportunities, and having someone to look up to as a coach, like myself to really help guide them through these challenges, right?
And it's great that you're
Sometimes,
coaching people. That's what I love about your podcast and about you personally. So you
thank you.
make time to talk about purpose, but you also make time to mentor and coach others. Uh, and we need more people like you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I I love what I do. I'm very passionate about it, and this is my calling. It's my purpose is really to get out, have a message to the world, which is that we have to live out our highest, truest, most grand version of ourselves because life is short. Don't waste a moment and step into who you are, what you're meant to do in this world. Share your gifts and your light because people need that. What people need is more inspiration, more love, more joy, more peace in this world. And I am I do my best to be the embodiment of all of that. And I want to inspire people to also be that because we need more of that in this world, right? And so
Hmm.
that's why I do what I do every day, with this podcast and with my coaching practice is really to help people overcome their personal, professional challenges and get them into a place where they can see themselves in a different light, in a different way, and how they show up and impact the communities that they're part of, themselves, their family, their friends. And you're very similar as well too.
Yeah, and I love that about you. And I think if to go back to something I would tell to young people in particular is that find inspiration in everything around you.
Mhm.
And I was just doing a little workshop for the Asian American Professional Association called APA, and one of the exercises is that you draw these cards, and you might draw a picture of a rock, or you might draw a picture of durian, or you might draw a picture of stinky tofu. You might draw a picture of, someone that you absolutely detest.
Right.
But everybody has some interesting point that might elevate them to think a little bit differently, but also to find some inspiration in what some of these people do. Because even if there's somebody you don't like, um, there are other people that may like that person. And why do they like that person? What are the attributes about that person that makes this person be loved by a group of people that you may be completely opposed to? Why might you find inspiration from a rock,
Right.
or some inanimate object that's in your life?
Yeah.
When we're able to do that, then I think we enjoy our lives much more.
Yeah.
But we also find inspiration in everything that we see and touch, feel, and even taste.
Mhm. I think everything, everyone is created by God, by the universe, by whoever this higher power is, or whatever faith you believe in. And everything, everyone, every item you touch and see and hear is created by this magnificent intelligence. And so there's beauty in all of that. And so when you come from you have a really great point when you perceive the thing, the it, with a new fresh of eyes, eyes of inspiration. Even looking at a rock can give you inspiration. That shows a lot about who you are internally, where your internal world um, is, right? Because you're coming from a place of inspiration. That's who you are. And so we have the power to change how we see things. So it's that power that uh, that's within our response, that makes the difference. We may not be able to control what other people do or behave or say, but our power is within, right? And so it's really being grounded and taking that power back and finding a way to make meaning of it. So yeah, I love that. Speaking of meaning, as you probably agree, there's value in finding meaning in failure. How do you overcome uh, moments when you failed, and how do you change it to, I guess, how do you change your mindset to learn from it?
By the way, for people that are listening, it's not easy to overcome failure. And if anybody says it's easy, um,
It's
maybe
not.
for some, but I will tell you it really isn't. So, and it took a very long time, let's say over a decade,
Mm.
um, to deal with failure and to, snap out of it. And it finally took a couple of, mentors to just say, really? The amount of energy you spend, thinking about failure is wasted.
Mhm.
Once you learn how to take the energy that you expend worrying about what people think and how you did and why you did certain things poorly, once you figure out how to turn that energy into something positive, then you're going to realize the value of failure.
Right,
And I I finally just snapped out of it one day. I went, wait a minute, it is a lot of expended energy that's wasted. I need to think about what I can do with that energy and how to convert it into something positive.
right,
And I have to say, sometimes I do think about other people and went, wow, you are in such a better position. You are in a position of privilege. You're in a position where you can learn from others. You're in a position to have mentors and people who care about you. Um, and and so many people don't have that. So once you remind yourself that you do have all of these tools and these friends and family members and supporters behind you, then it's so much easier to turn this negative thinking into something positive. And so
wow,
that's what I do.
that's
Think about
beautiful.
the energy and convert it to something positive.
Yeah, I love that because the energy that we spend on worrying, on anxiousness and all that is wasted energy. Why not convert it into something positive, right? And come up with a solution, or get yourself back up on track and do better versus just dwelling on, the negative moment at present. And
Yeah,
so,
and I'll just give you like one little example. I used to become very competitive in if I would lose a piece of business as an agency person, you're competing with other agencies, your peers, or you know, and if we would, participate in a pitch for new business, and if we didn't get that business, I would just beat myself up and say
Mhm.
I just completely let the team down. The company didn't like us. Clearly, there was something wrong with me and the company. And that went on for a good solid decade. I would just
Wow.
wallow in my sorrow and, I screwed up, I failed, I let people down, and the company wasn't convinced to work with us. And then I realized, wait a minute, um, I should be learning from what the competitors do. I
Right.
should embrace some of those things. I should be inspired by what they're doing,
Yes.
and use it as a way to learn from it. And once
Yes.
that happened, my thinking around failure changed. And now I
Wow.
actually want our competitors to be as strong as possible. And I've become very friendly with all of our competitors, uh, and we help them, and they help us because we want them to be as strong as possible. And if they beat us and we
Right.
fail to convince a company to hire us, we celebrate it. And we
Right.
realize there's something that we can do better next time. We should try it. Is
Right.
there a better way we can compete? Let's do it. And so I celebrate failing.
That is such a great point, Bill, because in leadership, great leadership requires being surrounded by other great leaders, right? They don't create more followers. And very similar to your situation about helping your competitors, you want your competitors to be at their best so that you compete with the best so that you can be the best, right? And if you can help your competitors to be at their best, that's a win, right? That is
I
so
think it's a win. I will tell you this, some of the people on my staff, they go, Bill, what is our competitor doing in the office? I said, they did something that I didn't do for many, many years. They said, we need help.
right,
And they said, but why would you help the competitors? And I said, because if they're strong, we'll be strong.
right,
Because it'll fuel innovation, it'll fuel, ambition and creativity.
right,
And when they beat us, we should celebrate that they beat us. We shouldn't wallow in it. We should say, okay, next time we're going to do better, and we're going to be more competitive. And so we're all very friendly now because we realize that competition fuels a little bit of innovation, a little creativity, competition, a spirit of fun.
yeah,
And there's always something that we don't know that we understand we can learn now.
right. And there's so much meaning behind all of that. Helping your competitors is one is that you get to learn how they operate, which diversify your experience. And every, like you said earlier, every situation you can learn, whether good or bad, right?
Mhm.
You can learn from everyone, even the janitor that's cleaning the bathroom. You can learn from him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You can learn something from people, all people. And so when you have that perspective coming in, it really can help you with innovation, broaden your horizon, and give you a new perspective, a renewed sense of energy. And so I
Mhm.
love that about you, Bill, is that you're open and receptive to things that, other people might hesitant because you know that you're thinking outside the box, you're thinking broader than the limited scope most people put themselves in.
Yeah, but I love what
By
you
your
just said, Con, as
success?
well. I just love what you just said as well, Con. And I think this is something that is very important to remind everyone that when you're looking for a mentor, sometimes it could be that janitor. And frankly, I think I would probably learn a lot from a janitor.
Mhm.
Um, Lived experiences, style, the way they clean up, the way they manage their supplies, how they communicate with their superiors and people that they work with, how they engage in the community. There's so much we could learn from every single person we encounter, and it doesn't always have to be someone that that is very high ranking, the president of a company. It doesn't have to be that person. It could be anybody.
Right. And that reminds me of a story I heard on a podcast. Um, Who was the founder of Walmart? Sam
Sam Walton.
Walton. Yes. When he started Walmart, he would walk into every retail store, even the ugliest, unorganized stores, and he would come back with a renewed sense of inspiration. The entire retail could could look organized and dirty, but he would say something like, "Did you look at the candle display? How they were so beautifully organized?" And he took that inspiration, incorporated into his business. So even something like that from Sam Walton can inspire him. And so that just confirms our point that, we have to see inspiration, even at the littlest of things, the people that we may not typically see, um, that has, that that has inspiration. So again, it's really changing your mindset and looking at things from a different angle that can really inspire us to live out our life, or create the business dream that we want.
Sam
Um,
Walton also said, swim upstream, go against conventional wisdom. And that sticks with me every single day, swimming upstream.
mm.
Now, who would tell somebody to swim upstream? Uh, you're going against the currents, you're using a lot of energy, but then he adds, go against conventional wisdom, which I think is just a brilliant little comment.
Mm.
Because if you follow conventional wisdom, then you're never going to learn, you're never going to innovate. But he
Right.
paid a lot of attention to every little detail. And I know you're going to talk about books, and so I'm reading a book right now that every detail matters.
Yes.
Um, and that's something that isn't lost on me as an agency person that is involved in customer service.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine like all the operations that you have to, oversee, from operations, sales to marketing to people, right? And so, um, you know, how do you manage all of that? How do you get people into a room and have them move into one mission of the organization? And I mean, you have a company that's over, how many employees do you have now? Like several hundred?
85,
What's that?
85.
You five? Okay. And that's a lot to manage, right? So how do you get them to move in one direction, to achieve the kinds of goals that you set for your business?
By encouraging everyone to always remain curious and to take a scientific approach to looking at things, but also with a human touch.
That's
And I think one thing you were asking about superpower, I would say our superpower is humility. Now, not a lot of people would like to hear that because they don't necessarily want humility to be connected to Asian Americans. But I
mm,
do think that that is our superpower because one thing that I think is important to inspire other people is to always remain curious and always to be humble about the things you don't know.
mm,
And if you don't know something, it's okay to say, I have no idea, but I'd like to know. And when you bring that to a culture, uh, then that curiosity kind of spreads to other people, and everybody wants to learn together. So, just as an example, we just had an AI session today. AI kind of levels in some really interesting way that proverbial unlevel playing field because we're all learning together how to master some of the tools that exist with AI and AR. And so, this level of curiosity, instilling that, as well as reminding all of us that humility is our superpower, helps bring people together. And of course, good food, matcha lattes, that doesn't hurt either.
mm. That's beautiful. Of course, that's going to get your employees to be engaged and productive, as long as you're knowing that you're taking good care of them. C.S. Lewis said, that humility is not thinking less of yourself, is thinking of yourself less. So it's really putting people first, right? And I see that in you as a characteristic, a true leadership characteristic, is that you take care of your people by putting themselves first. You're a servant leader. You value them, and so you'll find ways to take care of them, to create a culture where they can belong and feel like they can bring their full self to work. without being judged, right? And that's what a lot of employees need in today's company culture, or looking for a leader, is that a leader that can not only empower and inspire them to be at their best, but also treats them well, takes care of them, respects them, and values their contribution to uh, the organization.
I also think it's important to have employees that'll forgive you for your, moments, lax moments in judgment, your
Yeah,
little moments where you get grumpy and angry.
yeah.
And so it's always nice to be able to have a group of people that'll just give you a little grace and say, "Hey, we had a bad day today, and we know you're having a bad day. What can I do to help?"
Right.
And I think that that's the kind of the culture that we're trying to instill in our team. Is that sometimes we have our bad moments,
We do,
but we celebrate those as well, and say
yeah.
there's always something that we can do uh, to make things better, and um, we should do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's that human touch to what you were saying earlier. It's part of being human. It's a human experience, right? So, gee, I mean, if I were to go back to being a full-time W-2 employee, I'd say, hey, I want to work for you, Bill.
Come on down.
But entrepreneurship is my path here. So, um,
We
I know
need to
more about
hang
that.
out more.
What's that?
We need to hang out more. I kind of wish
Yes.
that I was doing podcasts like you, and I kind of wish I had been writing things about, the minority myth or, all these kind of things. Um, but I think that's kind of cool what you're doing and so early too, and that you found purpose so early. Uh, so that's kind of cool about you. But I do think it kind of reminds me of this saying or what people have told me that the path from point A to point B isn't always a straight line. Some
Yeah.
people are able to find things quickly, discover those things, and kind of like follow their passion. Some people might take them 10, 15 years. And frankly, it took me that long to figure out um, what my passions are and what my purpose is in life. But now I don't want to waste any time. I want to make sure that I'm doing what I love doing and helping other people find those passions as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, I'm an old soul, Bill. So I look young, but I'm an old soul.
But
I love talking about purpose and meaning, and that's where I can really jam out and inspire people. And so I think part of it was because I had to grow up really fast. I'm one of 12 kids in my family to uh, you know,
and
also
where were you in the 12?
I'm the middle child. Yeah,
Okay.
the middle child. So yeah. And but I had to grow up really quickly. I didn't have like a regular childhood experience where I had to go out and play and with my friends and have sleepovers. Like I grew up, I had to take care of my younger siblings,
Hmm.
and my parents had to take care of the younger siblings, the babies, while I was, trying to cook and clean and help take care of, the household, kind of be the man of the household, because my dad was not always present. He was always working, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And so, but
Yeah.
I have no regrets at all. I think that really gave me a lot of, it raised me up really quickly and gave me a lot of experience. And so I do what I do is because of my upbringing, and I wouldn't change anything.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I know we're about that time, and I want to respect your time, Bill. And I just have two questions here. We did talk a little bit about books. What are some of the books that you read that perhaps you could share with my audience as relates to just success, entrepreneurship, business, purpose? And then the second question is, where can people find you and your work if they're inspired by this talk?
I'm just finishing up the book by Will Guidara, Unreasonable Hospitality. He was the one that was the general manager of a very storied New York restaurant called 11 Madison Park. I don't know what drew me to that because I thought, why would I want to read a book about somebody that ran a restaurant?
Mhm.
Uh, I'm finding the book absolutely fascinating because he talks about every little detail matters and how to bring delight to people and customers. And so I'm just finishing up that book, and it's a really easy read. and it's almost as if this man is talking to you. And he grew up, he went to Cornell and studied restaurant management.
Mm.
And then I read Adam Grant's book, which is also a New York Times bestseller called Rethink Again, I think, or Think Again. And
Mm.
that book kind of turned kind of Simon Sinek's kind of thinking a little bit on its head because, Simon Sinek always said you have to find your why.
Yeah.
Then you can discuss the things like the how and the what.
Mm.
Um, but he suggests that, we think a little bit like a scientist
Mm.
when we're approaching things, and that we have to unlearn so many things.
Right.
And what he says really resonates with me because I always tell people, um, think inside the box and
Yeah.
reinvent wheels, and try to use different terminology that doesn't stop people from communicating with you. Because if you
Right.
say, "Hey, quit reinventing the wheels," then you're basically telling that person that their opinion doesn't matter.
Right.
uh, or we got to level the playing field. I don't think the playing field is ever going to be level in my lifetime, but it certainly is a nice thought to give everyone that ability to have all the tools that they need to succeed. That
Mm.
everyone would have access to those tools, but in reality, it doesn't. It isn't true. But what can we do um, to learn how to fix that? And so I really like what Adam Grant had to say. Think like a scientist,
Mm.
but be willing to unlearn what you've learned and rethink things again. But also be celebrate things you don't know and celebrate things when people prove you wrong. And I have to say, I do love it when people argue with me and tell me, "Bill, you're wrong, and this is the reason why." And I'll go, "Wow, I have never thought about this challenge in that way.
Mm.
And I need to unlearn the way I tackle problems and rethink them and try something new." So it's kind of fun now to have arguments and disagreements and debates. Uh, and if somebody proves you're wrong, it's okay. Celebrate that you learned something special and new.
Mhm. That's
So
beautiful.
those are the two books.
That's beautiful. And what last advice would you share with my listeners?
The best advice is to um, find ways to uplift others. And it's a quote from Booker T. Washington from the Tuskegee Institute, which I absolutely love. He
Mm.
said, "If you want to uplift yourself, uplift someone else." And I really take that to heart. We have a lot of things that going well for us, and there's a lot of things going well for me.
Mm.
But it's not going to do any good unless I share it with others or help uplift those people. Because if I'm able to uplift others, I know they're going to pay it forward and uplift 10, 20, 30, or 40 people. And no matter what you do, even if it's a very small act of kindness, you have no idea what a rippling effect that could have on more than just one person. It
Right.
gets passed on and passed on and passed on. So if you have a chance to uplift someone else, do it because it will uplift you as well.
Yeah, we need more kindness and more generosity in this world. I like to tell people, and I coach some of my clients, moving away from a scarcity mindset to abundance because there's more than enough for all of us. Somebody said, when it's not your loss, there's more than enough for all of us to enjoy, and that works wonders. So I appreciate that, Bill. Um, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Not everyone's involved in LinkedIn, but if they look up Bill Imada on LinkedIn, they can find me there. But don't follow me, connect with me,
Mhm.
because I'm happy to respond to any questions or if anybody wants time to have a conversation. It might be hard to find me like it was for you, but I eventually will get back to you.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to talk to anybody who'd like to talk.
Yeah. My advice to those that want to reach out to you is just ping Bill, a number of times. Bill is a VIP, very important person. He does a lot of great things in the community and business and so on. So uh don't feel like him ignoring you is his way of not wanting to connect. Bill, you're such a admirable person to be with. I always enjoy your energy, your presence, and who you are as a person. And I just want to honor that as someone that is instrumental in helping not just the Asian American community thrive, but also entrepreneurs and people that you come cross path with to really help them shine in their own light. So thank you for that, Bill.
Thank you so much.